Welcome, dear students. Today we will be doing the fifth lesson of Unit 2. Let's March is a lesson about an extremely important topic. It's about an issue more horrible than COVID-19. I'm talking about child labor and child trafficking, the issue we ought to know about. Child labor is about kids below 18 who are forced to work as labor, and that is a heinous crime. After school, you go home, have lunch, maybe watch TV or take a nap, perhaps attend classes or tuitions, and in the evening head out to play. But not all the kids in the world are as fortunate. Many are slogging it out in the restaurants, construction sites, some shabby workshop to earn for their family. This lesson, Let's March, is actually a speech given by a person called Kailash Satyarthi. He was born in the year 1954. Kailash Satyarthi is one of the Indians who has won one of the prestigious awards in the world, that is, Nobel Peace Prize for Peace and Humanity in the year 2014. Now, Kailash Satyarthi is an Indian child rights activist. He quit a successful career as an engineer to fight against child labor. He has advocated the universal right to education. He is a founder of multiple social activist organizations, including Bachpan Bachao Andolan, which has successfully rescued 83,000 children from child labor, trafficking, and slavery. Now, have you ever wondered why Sir APJ Abdul Kalam never received a Nobel Prize? See, understand this. Sir APJ Abdul Kalam has contributed a lot, right? But his contributions and work was for the benefit of India and not world at large. So, Kailash Satyarthi is honored with many awards, including Nobel Peace Prize of 2014. Now, he had addressed this speech on the eve of Nobel Prize distribution ceremony. Let's start with the lesson. This lesson is a speech delivered by Kailash Satyarthi. Now remember that the first part of the speech writing is always an address to the audience. Now, getting back to the lesson, this program was held in the country of Norway, a country in Europe. Let's begin with the lesson. My dear children of the world, Your Majesties, Your Royal Highnesses, Excellencies. Now, why does he say Majesties, Royal Highnesses, Excellencies? That's because there are many countries in Europe where they still have kings and queens. Distinguished members of the Norwegian Nobel Committee. Now, the meaning of distinguish is very successful and commanding great respect. And also note that Norwegian Nobel Committee is responsible for deciding the recipients of the Nobel Peace Prize every year. Dear brother Tom Harkin, brothers and sisters, and my dear daughter Malala. Now, Tom Harkin is an American politician who had nominated Kailash Satyarthi for the Nobel Peace Prize. Malala is not his biological daughter. He treats her like one. I'm sure you all know Malala Yousafzai. She is a Pakistani girl. Now, the local Pakistani Taliban had banned the girls from attending school. Malala, however, continued to do so. Hence, she was shot in the head with a bullet. Money started pouring from every nook and corner of the world for her recovery. After her recovery, she used the funds not for her personal leisure but as a prominent activist for the right to education. She also co-founded a non-profit organization further advocating human rights. She was the youngest ever Nobel Prize laureate at the age of 17. In 2014, she was the co-recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize along with Kailash Satyarthi. From this podium of peace and humanity, I am deeply honored to recite a mantra from the ancient texts of wisdom Vedas. This mantra carries a prayer, an aspiration. Now, aspiration means hope or desire, and a resolve that has the potential, that is, capacity to liberate. Liberate meaning to allow somebody to feel free, to be free. Humanity from all man-made crises. Now, what are man-made crises? Child labor, terrorism, and so on. Let's walk together in the pursuit of global progress. Not a single person should be left out or left behind in any corner of the world, from east to west, south to north. Let's speak together. Let our minds come together, learning from the experiences of our ancestors. Let us together create knowledge for all that benefits all. Now, this mantra was actually quoted in Sanskrit. He says that this mantra is a deep desire to resolve the world from man-made crisis. It talks about working together for a better world. I bow to my late parents, to my motherland India, and to the Mother Earth. With a warm heart, I recall how thousands of times I have been liberated. Each time I have freed a child from slavery. In the first smile of freedom on their beautiful faces, I see the gods smiling. After paying respects to his parents, motherland India, and to Mother Earth, he says that each time he rescues a child from slavery, he feels liberated. He compares the smiles of the children to the smiles of the gods. I give the biggest credit of this honor to my movements Kalu Kumar, Dhoom Das, Adarsh Kishore from India, and Iqbal Masih from Pakistan, who made the supreme sacrifice for protecting the freedom and dignity. Now, here dignity means self respect of children. I humbly accept this award on behalf of all such martyrs. Martyrs means a person who is killed because of what he believes. My fellow activists across the world and my countrymen. Now, children, Kailash Satyarthi gives credit to certain people here. Who are they? Kalu Kumar. He was a former child laborer. He then became a child right activist and was associated with Bachpan Bachao Andolan. Dhumdas, a Bachpan Bachao Andolan activist who was assassinated in 1984, and Adarsh Kishore, an activist who was killed in an attack in 1989 at Faridabad for trying to rescue bonded labor from the mining mafia. Now, these three men are from India, right? Now, he also acknowledges the work of an activist, Iqbal Masih, a Pakistani child rights activist, who was formerly a bonded laborer. He won international acclaim, but was killed at the young age of 12. Now, Kailash Satyarthi gives credit not only to these but also other such activists who have sacrificed their lives for protecting the freedom and dignity of children. Let's continue. My journey from the great land of Lord Buddha, Guru Nanak, and Mahatma Gandhi, India to Norway, is a connect between the two centers of global peace and brotherhood, ancient and modern. Friends, the Nobel Committee has generously invited me to present a lecture. Respectfully, I am unable to do that because I am representing here the sound of silence, the cry of innocence, and the face of invisibility. I represent millions of those children who are left behind, and that's why I have kept an empty chair here as a reminder. I have come here only to share the voices and dreams of our children because they are all your children. Gestures to everyone in the audience. I have looked into their frightened and exhausted eyes. I have held their injured bodies and felt their broken spirits. Now, here he calls India the ancient center and Norway the modern center of global peace and brotherhood. He says that the Nobel Committee has invited him to present a lecture. He is unable to do it as he represents the sound of silence, which means unheard appeal of the children in distress, face of invisibility, which means unnoticed suffering of the poor and innocent, the cry of innocent children. He says that he has come to share the voices and the dreams of those children whose frightened and exhausted eyes he has seen, whose injured bodies he has held, and whose broken spirits he has felt. "20 years ago, in the foothills of the Himalayas, I met a small skinny child laborer. He asked me, 'Is the world so poor that it cannot give me a toy and a book, instead of forcing me to take a gun or a tool?' I met with a Sudanese child soldier. He was kidnapped by an extremist militia, that is, terrorist. As his first training lesson, he was forced to kill his friends and family. He asked me, 'What is my fault?' So, 20 years ago, when he rescued a thin, pale child laborer from the foothills of Himalayas, the child questioned him if the world was so poor that he was not helped by anyone who could offer him a book or a toy, but he was rather forced to take a gun or a tool, which means there is no empathy left in the world where people don't feel the need to reach out to such deprived children. Now, Sudan is a country in North Africa. This is one of the dangerous countries to travel due to crime, terrorism, civil unrest, kidnapping, and armed conflict. In fact, Sudan has been designated a state sponsor of terrorism by the United States. Kailash Satyarthi speaks about the disturbing question of a Sudanese child soldier who was forced to kill his friends and family as his first training lesson. He wants to know what was his fault. Kids, these militants or terrorists, when they kidnap and train kids, the first task given to them usually is to kill their own family. Once they do that, these kids become hardcore and ruthless. Friends, all the great religions teach us to care for our children. Jesus said, "Let the children come to me, do not hinder them." Hinder means to stop. For the kingdom of God belongs to them. The Holy Quran says, "Kill not your children because of poverty." Friends, there is no greater violence than to deny the dreams of our children. Therefore, I refuse to accept that all the temples and mosques and churches and prayer houses have no place for the dreams of our children. I refuse to accept that the world is so poor when just 1 week of global military expenditure can bring all the children to classrooms. So, he quotes lines from various religions to show that all religions urge us to take care of our children. There is no greater violence than to kill the dreams of children, and therefore all religions must work towards the protection of unprivileged children. Kids, to wage a war against, say, Pakistan, India will have to spend almost 42 billions. A huge amount is kept aside for military as country security is at stake. Now just imagine if there is world peace, or say for example, if we take just 1 week of global military expenditure, won't it help all the children in the world to go to school? Think about it. I refuse to accept that all the laws and constitutions, police and judges are unable to protect our children. I refuse to accept the shackles, means something which prevents somebody from behaving as they want, of slavery can ever be stronger than the quest meaning a long search for something that is difficult to find. Quest for freedom, I refuse to accept here. So, he refuses to accept any excuses which says that the world cannot wipe out the evil of child abuse. My only aim in life is that every child is free to be a child, that is, to live his childhood. And how is it going to be possible? Only if they are free to grow and develop, free to eat, sleep, and see daylight, free to laugh and cry, free to play and learn, free to go to school, and above all, free to dream. I have the privilege of working with many courageous people who have the same aim. We have never given up against any threat or attack, and we never will. We have made progress in the last couple of decades. Now, decade is a period of 10 years. We have reduced the number of out of school children by half. We have reduced the number of child laborers by a third. We have reduced child mortality and malnutrition, and we have prevented millions of child deaths. But let us make no mistake, great challenges still remain. Now he mentions that his fellow activists have not given up on their struggle due to the threats or attacks, and they will continue to do the same. Now students, these activists, when they free children from child labor or from militants group, they disrupt the ecosystem which is linked with the underworld. These powerful people then threaten or assault these activists in return in order to scare them. And he continues to say that they have successfully reduced the number of children out of school by half and child laborer by a third. They have reduced child mortality. Mortality means death, malnutrition, and have prevented many child deaths. But there still remains challenges left to overcome. Friends, the biggest challenge or biggest crisis knocking on the doors of humankind is fear and intolerance. We have utterly failed our children in imparting an education that gives the meaning and objective of life, an education that gives a sense of global citizenship among the youth. I am afraid that the day is not very far away when the cumulative result will of this failure will culminate meaning to reach to its highest altitude in an unprecedented, meaning never known or done before, violence, and that will be suicidal for mankind. Rights, security, hope can only be restored through education. Young people like Malala and other Kainats and Shazia and the daughters from Africa and from all over the world, they are rising up and choosing peace over violence, tolerance over extremism, and courage over fear. The solutions are emerging, but these solutions cannot be found in the deliberations, meaning long and careful discussions, in conference alone, and cannot be found in prescriptions from a distance. They lie in small groups, local organizations, and individuals who are confronting, meaning facing a challenge, with the problem every day. Even if they remain unacknowledged, unrecognized, and unknown to the world, the solution are with them. So he tells us that a complete global and superior education system is needed to erase fear and intolerance amongst mankind. Young people like Malala, now we have discussed about her. He says both the Kainats, Shazia and the girls from Africa. Now who are these Kainats? First is Kainat Somro, a Pakistani rape victim at the age of 13, who fought against all odds to get justice. Then Kainat Riaz, who accompanied Malala and was shot by Taliban on her right arm. Also Shazia Riaz, who was shot in her shoulder and hand on the same day. Now these girls had chosen peace over violence, tolerance over extremism, and courage over fear. And these are ordinary girls from a modest background. Still, they showed great courage, isn't it? They gathered themselves to make the world a better place for the less privileged. This also shows that new solutions are emerging amongst the small groups and local organizations at the grassroots level. And remember, my dear students, one cannot come up with solutions in the comforts of well maintained conference halls or just by getting together and coming up with some solutions just on the internet. We need to reach out to everybody we can in whatever way possible. Solutions rely on actions on our behalf. So, we are done with part 1 and we will continue with the lesson in the next video. That's all for now for part 1. Thank you.